Thank you, Derek. Hello, hello. So thank you for that, Derek, for that wonderful introduction. So just let me give you a little bit more of my background. So I call myself today a technology entrepreneur on sabbatical. And in fact, I had the great opportunity to found a technology software company in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And in fact, we created one of the very first software as a service construction management platforms for big box retailers. So we had the great opportunity to serve global brands like Walmart and Lowe's and Kroger and Home Depot. And in fact, there wasn't a Walmart store that was built on this planet and continues to do so today that doesn't use our technology platform. So I started, I scaled, and I exited that business in 2012, having co-founded it with my husband in the spare bedroom of our house and a very good friend of ours. I would like to say sometimes we were SaaS before SaaS was sassy. Everybody talks about software as a service. And back in 1999, early 2000, just for context setting, we were still using dial-up modems. So you can imagine, we're just talking a little bit about innovation and disruption. That's really where we started and we cut our teeth. So we were a 12-year overnight success. Most recently, I was the CEO of a company called Chaotix. And Chaotix created one of the very first crowdsourcing platforms. And we set out to disrupt the market research or market intelligence space by building global consumer fan communities. And so our largest client that most of you would recognize was a company called Lego. And so the Back to the Future DeLorean was actually created by Lego's consumer community, by their large group of fans. 750,000 adult fans of Lego have helped Lego create new products. And so I had the great opportunity to work in Chaotix and finished up there about a year ago. And so I'm now I am what they call, as Derek mentioned, I am the associate director of a program here called Creative Destruction Lab for the Rockies. And I think I pretty much have the best job on the planet right now. And I get to serve the innovation ecosystem in our community in doing what I do and doing what I love and have passion for, which is helping people start and helping create and mentor startups. And so we're going to talk about It Takes a Village. So Derek said, Alice, talk about what kind of village you had and what kind of village we need. So very quickly, you cannot do it alone. It does take a village to raise a startup. And it takes an innovation ecosystem that is interested in developing not only the entrepreneur and commercializing the technology, but all of those things. And so Dr. Gregory Rees, Duke University, the late, he passed away a number of years ago, was credited with actually creating the academic field of social entrepreneurship. And he says, just as it takes a village to raise a child, it takes the support of an ecosystem to scale innovations. It does. It takes an ecosystem to raise a startup. And so to that end, about a year ago, some of you may have heard of this. We call it Rainforest Alberta. And Rainforest Alberta was founded about a year ago by a very generous technology entrepreneur, or as he likes to call himself, a small business person, Brad Zumwalt, and a number of other folks in the community, with really the intent to develop an interesting innovation ecosystem for the purpose of diversifying our economy and creating great new ventures for prosperity. And so rainforest is a really interesting metaphor for what it is. So if we think about a rainforest, it's a living system. It's where ideas themselves can flourish, can thrive, can prosper, it can be full of delight. But not everything survives in a rainforest. Things do not make it. But when they don't make it, what they leave us with are valuable lessons and experiences, which create the fertile soil by which new ideas can grow and can prosper. And so Rainforest Alberta today, we have, I think, about over 800 people who have signed what you're seeing here, which is called our social contract. And our social contract are the rules of engagement. How are we all willing to engage in our innovation ecosystem to ensure that we can create and develop those entrepreneurs and those ideas into commercial prosperity? And so if you haven't, I would encourage you to check out rainforestab.ca. And I would also encourage you to come to No Lunch Lunch on Wednesdays, or Lunch Without Lunch on Wednesdays, where a group of like-minded individuals who are interested and passionate about developing innovation and our innovation ecosystem gather. And we talk about what you can do for the innovation ecosystem, but more importantly, what can we do for you? And so sorry, I just forgot to mention, the other thing about Rainforest Alberta is really about the idea of a culture. It's the culture of innovation, and it's a culture of innovation built on trust. okay? So it really, truly is about us creating that really interesting culture of innovation. And so where it starts with then is programming. And so there is, it's interesting because we've talked a little bit, we heard Jay talk about entrepreneurial thinking, we had Adam talk about a mindset, and it really is. Entrepreneurial thinking can be taught. It's a mindset. It truly is something that we can give academic entrepreneurs the skills and the knowledge and the ability and the experiences to start and scale ventures. In fact, if you look at the Lean Startup by Eric Ries, or you think about the business model canvas as a tool to use, their programming is a key foundation for what we need to do in order to grow and scale ventures here. Coaching and mentoring. So just as you think about sort of the academics in the room, you know, you have collaborators, you have advisors, you have partners. And so as entrepreneurs, we also need coaches and mentors. And so coaches and mentors in our community are those business leaders who are interested in giving back, who are truly interested in developing the next generation of Alberta technology and small business entrepreneurs. And so there's two organizations locally that I can call on that highlight this. One of them is called the Venture Mentoring Service of Alberta, hosted and spawned by Innovate Calgary. So the VMSA is really about how do we help generate and provide that supporting infrastructure for entrepreneurs in Alberta. And then the A100. So as Derek mentioned, I'm the chair of an organization of the A100, which is Alberta technology entrepreneurs who have started, scaled, and exited businesses here in Calgary and Edmonton and anywhere in between. And you know, our purpose or our stated mission is the development of the next generation of Alberta technology entrepreneurs. Just as you need collaborators just as you need collaborators and advisors when you think about research projects, you need coaches and mentors as well. Access to capital. So that was an interesting question. You talked about the access to capital. So there is actually no shortage of capital here in Alberta. And it's a premise that we are certainly building upon at Creative Destruction Labs. And it starts first and foremost oftentimes with non-dilutive funding sources. So when we think about the non-dilutive funding sources, we think about grants. We think about tax credits such as SR&ED. We think about loans. It's those things that you can go ahead and take advantage of where you don't have to sell a portion of a piece of your business. And if we refer back to Jay's diagram, you know, the bridge over the valley of death? So another way to help bridge that gap is through angel investing. And so what are angels? Angels are people who are truly interested in creating an opportunity for the entrepreneur. They believe deeply in the entrepreneur, they believe in the idea, and you will have many angel investors tell you that they would much rather invest in an A team with a B idea than an A idea with a B team, okay? And so access to capital is there. It starts with loans and grants and non-dilutive funding sources, and we bridge that gap as we go through that sort of research phase and into product development phase, potentially with friends and family, credit cards, mortgages, lines of credit on our house, whatever it takes in order to start to demonstrate that you can do what you need to do to get others to believe in who you are and what you're doing and that your idea has promise. And so as you move through that phase, the access to capital can come in the form of angels. And once you've got the traction, you can start to look for other sources such as venture financing and those kinds of things. And I see this often, technology in search of a problem. So, you know, when we think about management consultant, well-read in the management world called Peter Drucker, and actually Aaron had a number of quotes from him. He actually talks about the fact that entrepreneurs don't create opportunities. Create opportunities, rather what entrepreneurs actually exploit the opportunities that are created because of change. They don't cause the change, they exploit the opportunities as a result of the change. So when we think about new technologies that are coming to market, when we think about new technologies that you may be inventing in your lab, entrepreneurs are actually taking those and exploiting those opportunities that that technology or that new knowledge has actually created. And so I see this often, technology in search of a problem. Can't get there from here. In fact, nobody actually cares about your product unless you can sell it. So this is really truly about getting out there and understanding What does that mean? And is this a technology in search of a problem, or are we really truly solving a new market opportunity? And so invention does not equal innovation. Period, full stop. Inventing a technology in a research lab does not equal innovation. Innovation comes when we realize the economic, the social, the financial value of that of that invention. And it's where emerging technology and the problem space intersect, or where they collide. That's where we create innovation. Innovation is about creating value. And so how do you do that, particularly when you start perhaps in a research lab, or in your basement, or in your garage, or the spare bedroom of your house? You've got to get out of the lab. You actually have to go and talk to real customers. You have to put yourself out there. You have to hang your art on the wall. You have to ask whether or not this idea is valid, whether or not they would buy it. That people will tell you, oh, I'd really be awesome if you could add this feature. It'd really be great, or I'd buy it if. But really what you're trying to understand is the problem. You're trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of the problem that you are trying to solve, and whether or not anybody would be willing to pay for that. And you can't do that in an echo chamber. You can't do it just talking to your friends and your family and your colleagues. You've got to get out of the lab. You've got to talk to real customers. And when you think about it from a healthcare perspective, perhaps you've developed a new technology for cancer detection, or a new drug, or a new diagnostic. And it's important that you get out and talk to big pharma, or who you think your potential acquirer or licensor could be, because who knows, maybe they already have something in their pipeline that they're working on. Or maybe what you learn is that they'll actually be more interested is if you have a therapeutic that goes with that diagnostic. And by bundling that up, you have a really interesting product that you can take to market. But you'll only ever learn that if you get out of the lab and you go and talk to people. And so as my role at Creative Destruction Labs, I have an awesome opportunity, and I truly believe I have one of the best jobs going right now, because I get to go and explore what's in the sub-basement. And I have been into the sub-basement of engineering to figure out what's down there. And there are a number of projects that are down in the sub-basement of engineering just for intellectual curiosity's sake, right? We are looking and we are seeking, and we have a question that we want to answer. But really what we're asking ourselves is, are there projects down there with just a small tweak or a new opportunity that we could have commercialization potential? And so we've started this thing called lab crawls. And I literally go and knock on the doors of university and labs and college labs, and I'm like, tell me about your science. What are you working on? And we've discovered some really, really interesting opportunities there. So never discount what's in the sub-basement of engineering, for sure. But I think the other thing that I want to share is sometimes you have to be willing to pivot. The problem you think you are solving may not actually exist. It may not be there. It may be imaginary. It may be a little pivot of what you thought it was. And so you have to be prepared for the pivot. And so I'm going to tell you a little story about a company called Valideer. So Valideer started in the CDL Toronto cohort last year, and they developed a microfluidics technology that, using a portable device, could reveal color patterns based on the chemical and physical properties of the liquid. So the founders thought, oh, this is awesome. We will use this to detect counterfeit perfume. So as Chen Fong, as many of you who know Chen well, have said, his wife said, no woman wants to know that she bought counterfeit perfume. And so, isn't that the truth, right? $500 Chanel, we don't want to know. And so the company had to pivot, right? And where it's pivoted to is to oil and gas testing, in-field oil and gas testing. Company in Toronto, founders have moved here. They are growing their business here on a technology that they thought they would originally use to detect counterfeit perfume in the luxury market. Pretty awesome. Be prepared for the pivot. But how do you get started? We talked about bravery. We talked about courage. You just have to be willing to muster that and take the first step. And when you do, there is a huge, interesting innovation ecosystem that is here to support you. From the A100, to Startup Calgary, to the Hunter Hub, to Creative Destruction Lab Rockies, to Innovate Calgary. There is no shortage of opportunities for you to get started if you choose to muster the courage and take that step, okay? If you look hard enough, and you don't have to look very far, there is at least one event every week here in Calgary to help you start, to help you scale, to help you grow. You don't have to look far to go and find those events, those people, those areas that you're interested in to help start. You don't have to look far, I promise. And if you need some help, I'm happy to help you. But once you do take that step, it takes time and it takes commitment. You cannot be at this part-time. You cannot just, you cannot just sort of, if I may, half-ass it, right? Entrepreneurship takes time and it takes a real commitment. It's a journey. And you need to build a team. And I think Adam said, you don't have to be the CEO. He's absolutely right. You can be the chief scientist, you can be the chief marketing officer, you can be the chief commercialization officer. You don't have to be the CEO. What you do have to do is build your team. And when we talk about a team, Dave McClure from 500 Startups talks about this trifecta: a designer, a hustler, and a hack. It's a team of three. Unique skills, unique capabilities, unique knowledge and expertise to actually drive your new venture or your startup forward. And remember that advice is just advice. Everybody has an opinion about what you should do, what market you should serve, how fast you should go, how much money you should raise, but advice is just advice. It doesn't become, and everybody has an opinion. And you got to really consider, until you hear it 3 or 4 times when it becomes a consensus, perhaps that's when you want to act on it. And you need to trust your instincts. It's actually what keeps you alive. But I think one of the final things that I want to leave with you is that to change the world, you actually need to believe. With every fiber of your being, you need to believe that you can change the world, you can impact humanity, that you will create the value that you say you can create in your startup. Because if you don't, you can't expect anyone else to. And so the challenge of entrepreneurs achieving widespread and lasting impact is not just their challenge, it belongs to all of us. Thank you.